rebuilding confidence, and harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zymet.
Hello and welcome to the Beverly Zymet Show, where being the best you has just gotten easier. My guest today is calling in from Australia. Oh my gosh, and it's already the next day over there. How about that? Her name is Susan Kathleen. Welcome to the show.
Hello, and thank you so much, Beverly, and hello to your listeners as well. It's wonderful to be here, and yes, I am. I'm a day ahead of you. I'm in your time machine. The weather's pretty good at the moment. It's sunny.
Yeah, it's actually pretty nice over here today. It's not too hot, not too cold, and it's not raining. We've been having ungodly amounts of rain this year, and I'm not sure why. And a lot of snow still up in the mountains, so it almost seems like half winter.
It's actually raining a lot here as well, and it's very unusual weather here. It's meant to be winter, and I can tell you it's not really winter as you think it should be.
Yeah.
It's kind of humid still.
So are you going into your winter season while we're going into the summer season?
Yes, we are in the southern hemisphere. Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Yeah, that would take some getting used to. So, yeah, I tell you, the weather though has been so crazy all over. I guess you can't do nothing with it, so you just like float right alongside of it, right?
Well, there you go, Beverly. I feel like we're two British people talking about the rain.
Oh.
And not about COVID-19.
Oh my gosh, I'm so over that.
Enough of that.
I'm so over it. Let's talk about something exciting. What do you do over there, Susan?
Well, right now I am very excited because I'm on this wonderful woman's show. Her name's Beverly Zymet, and she's fantastic. And she's totally fascinating. She's one of these ladies that likes to talk about outer space and walk-ins and talk-ins and starseeds.
I might have to meet her. Can you introduce us?
Oh, yeah. Shall I do it?
Sure, yeah. Where is she? Oh, Susan and I had so much fun on her podcast here, about a week ago, I guess, right? And tell the audience what the name of your podcast is, Susan.
Oh, my podcast is called Awaken Your Mind Magic. And it's basically about how you can turn your life around through the power of positive thinking, really, and working with quantum physics, where you know that everything is energy and you change your life to the way you want it to be. And yes, we did. We had a chat last week, and I couldn't wait to get back again. So we swapped stories, and here I am. It's my turn to be interviewed, and I'm not used to being on this side of the microphone.
Yeah, you're not quite used to having your little face up there either.
No, I'm not. For the benefit of the audience, when I podcast, it's voice only, so I'm not used to that. I've been podcasting in my pajamas and all sorts of things. I had to get dressed and wash my hair today.
Oh my gosh, some days are like that though. You're thinking, oh my gosh. I know there's a few times when I come in, I'm like, oh, do I ever have to run the video today? I guess so, right? I think we all have days like that. Oh my gosh. So
We do.
But we definitely had a great time on your show and talking about awakening. And what inspired you to start that show? Your podcast on awakening.
Actually, Beverly, I have a coaching practice. I'm a transformational empowerment coach, working through evocative coaching, not sort of NLP or anything else like that. I'm qualified to do that, but I also went off to the States and I learned for 12 months how to become a transformational coach through an organization in Los Angeles. And it made sense for me to actually start a podcast that's associated with what I do. So that was the outset. And also, I love people. I mean, I know people all over the world, and
Right.
I get to know people pretty easily. I find them fascinating. And it was an amazing way to get my voice out there. I mean, I know that there are thousands of new podcasts going out since COVID-19. Everybody's getting into the scene of doing this.
Right.
A lot of them don't really last very, very long. But from the age of 3, I actually started voice training. I was on the stage. There was all sorts of things. And then, of course, with COVID-19, I couldn't go out and do my public speaking because I hold workshops and
Right.
I speak around the world as well. And I couldn't do that. So I thought, well, the logical thing to do is start a podcast. And yeah, I started it about pretty recently, actually. It was the beginning of the year. And it's going really well. And what's so lovely is I've lived long enough to have friends all over the world. And some of them are pretty cool. So I get to interview them. I get to interview people like you. So there you go.
I know. That's
What
one
part of
thing
it?
too about the show. I started mine, well, actually March 1st of this year, right? Before all of the COVID stuff, and it just kind of really started to blossom really fast. And it's amazing, what can happen when you start putting your voice out there, as you said. And that was kind of one of the main reasons why I started my show, was not only to get my own voice out there, but to get the voice of others out there and to be able to, have an expression of who they are. And again, start to know people all around the world. And I have had so many people coming in from the UK, Canada, and I've had, I think, 3 or 4 now from Australia, a bunch of them from South Africa. It's like, man, I tell you, when they open them planes up again, I got lots of places I can go.
Me too. I think one destination I have, it's actually going right to your front doorstep. when
Yeah.
I can get there. 'Cause
Well,
we
okay.
we just clicked. The vibration of friendship was huge when we first met each other, and we didn't even see each other. It was
No,
voice.
we didn't. It was just voice, but it just felt like like I'd just known you all my life. I was like, where you been hiding out at? My gosh, what's been going on? So, and I believe the same way you do, that it's that soul connection, right? That soul connection that we have spent time somewhere before, because you don't know someone like that or feel like that with everybody you meet. And it was so refreshing, and I love it. And I'm easy going as well. I mean, I meet people, in a flash, and, boom, all the curtains drop, and it's like you've known each other. But there's something different about when we met. There was just a bonding connection that, unless you've actually experienced it, it's hard to explain what that is.
I agree with you there, and I believe also it is a soul connection. There's always, and lots of people will feel déjà vu when they've met somebody and they think, I know that person somehow.
Right.
And that is because through our previous lives, or whatever it is that we want to relate to,
Right.
we are a soul force of one energy, aren't we? What I loved about you was how you spoke about your different projects and things, and I related to those so closely, because many of the things you've done, I've almost mirrored back with what you, in a sense, having done it myself.
Right.
And that was really refreshing. What I find so fascinating, Beverly, is that more and more people are slowing down now because they have to. They've got no choice.
Right.
And they're having time now to really reflect back and really wonder about how, and why is it that they are here. So
Right.
people seem to be, I've found that. I don't know if you've found that, but I've
No,
found
I have. I have it, and a lot of the people that I've talked with too are finding that, and because what are you going to do? It's not that go 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 go, and it's that slowing down. But there's a lot of them out there too that don't like that slow down because they have to look at themselves. They don't want to look at themselves. The anxieties build up. So we've got pros and cons on both sides, of the fence here, and it all boils back down into what your perception of it is and how you're going to handle it, and are you going to be resourceful with it, or are you going to let it overcome you? You only have one of two choices. You either flow with it and beat it, or you don't flow with it and you let it beat you, right?
Yeah, everything's accelerated. We've in the small pocket of 3 months,
Yeah.
people have had no choice other than to contemplate their belly buttons.
Yeah. That's one way to look at it. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. It's
Do
like,
a bit of
okay.
boom.
Yes, yeah, it's intriguing. There's no doubt about that. And when you look at businesses, some businesses are really, really thriving, and other businesses are kind of just hanging on, and others have just had to fall by the wayside. But, we see that all the time when there's major shifts like this, and I think we've been leading up to one for quite some time. It'll be interesting once everything is lifted, as they call it, right? And things get back to some form of normalcy. It's definitely not going to go back the way it was, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how people begin to interact again. Because even though a lot of places have opened up here, different restaurants and businesses and things like that, they're still wanting you to wear a mask and separate yourself. It's like, okay, you see that person over there? Well, you can't get close enough to talk to him because, and it's like, So it's interesting just to kind of watch people. I've always been a people watcher, so it's interesting for me to see how that's all playing out, because I'm a touchy-feely person, right? And it's just not the way I grew up. And hey, I've been on the planet 70 years, and I'm not about to change some things,
I agree with you. I think as well that we have to be aware of the fact that no matter no matter how this is accelerated with COVID-19, we are entering the true age of Aquarius.
Yes, we are.
And moving into a different, in the 60s it was the age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
However, it was
that was the hippie age, though, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? We're not that far removed from it when you start looking at it, And again, so the age of Aquarius and the awakening, right? Well, the awakening is kind of like that hippie age. Everything was about love, love, love. And just doing and being, and even kind of with the awakening, Susan, share with the audience what your definition of this awakening thing is.
Well, it's in the Bible. They speak about, or in any of the religious books, they speak about the scales falling off your eyes, and you have the ability to see. Basically it's you go through a certain series of things in your life when you suddenly wake up to the fact that these reasons that you've gone through them is so that you have the ability to understand yourself better once you understand your story better, and you can accept why some of the things that have happened to you, even though they've very possibly extremely adverse, have happened to you, so that you have the ability, once you have this epiphany of why,
Right.
and you have this awakening. So it's a spiritual awakening. And because, of course, we are all we are all spirit or souls, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
living a human experience. I mean, we all just put on our old human meat suit and off we go because we got choose to get born.
That's
We got
still
choose.
a meat suit. Did you guys hear what she just said? Your meat suit. Oh my gosh. I had never heard that until a week ago. And I laughed for 2-3 days after that. I kept thinking about this meat suit. And I was kind of out of my head until you said it again.
Well, there you go. You see, this is what we do. We make a sacred contract
Right.
before we're born. We know exactly what we're going to sign up for when we're in spirit form or part of the energy force, the God force, or what Gaia, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And we get born, and the way we get born also is part of the contract, whether you're in a cesarean or breech birth or any of those sort of things, and you choose who you're going to have as your birth parents and what's going to happen, and then you progress through it. And you have the ability to understand if you keep your mind open to what's happening, because nothing happens by coincidence. Everything happens for a reason.
Right.
A lot of these old quotes become more and more realistic to you and part of your speech when you have had an awakening. So your awakening is to know that you are this amazing, incredible, unique spirit, because each one of us have got a thumbprint that's different.
Right.
And we have chosen to get into that human meat suit, and we're going to do what we got to do with it. Some of us don't take that chance. But now COVID-19 has given us a big chance to actually reflect and hear people that we, like me, talking and thinking, wow, she's kind of woo-woo, but maybe she's making she's making a bit of sense.
Oh my gosh.
And
You talk
we
about
start
that.
to reflect back.
Yeah. You talk about that woo-woo stuff. Oh my gosh. Back in the 60s and the 70s, there wasn't anything. The woo-woo stuff was like you were like voodoo, or you were like maybe ready to go to the nut house to check in. I'm serious. No joke. No joke. And especially growing up in the Midwest though, here in farm country, and it was all. I was in very strict Catholic, 12 years in parochial school, and it was definitely religion. You had your Methodist, your Catholic, and your Lutheran. Those are the three biggies out there. So you were usually one of them. There's, a couple of little stray things running around, but those are the big ones. So religion was very in your face all the time, right? And so when you talk about spiritual things, or if you knew things ahead of time, you could, everybody thought there's something wrong with you. You must be a witch. You must be possessed. You must be all these things, and that's what I grew up around. So a lot of times I kind of kept that to myself until I had moved to Denver in '89 and started meeting people who could share with me and help me understand what that was. And once I had an understanding of it, there's no holding me back. I mean, I was gone. It's like, yes, see, I told you guys I weren't crazy, right?
It kind of happened like that way for me as well. I was born in Africa, in what was at the time called Southern Rhodesia. It's now Zimbabwe. Again, in the farming community, in what they called the colonial sort of era of that country. And they were very, with all due respect to anybody listening in, but I think they'd agree with me, they were very backward in their way of thinking, sort of like almost 20 years behind the first world countries, and very old-fashioned. And when I was born and started growing up, I could see auras. That's what I saw.
Right.
And I kind of felt what people were thinking. And if somebody was sad, even though they were laughing, I'd want to go and hug them because they were sad. And people started to think, oh, right from when I was little, that's a strange little girl. She's very odd.
Yes.
So I grew up with that. And that's what happens with childhood conditioning as well. People I deal with timeline regression and things like that. Um, they have almost been indoctrinated into believing that they are, like you say, Beverly, weird,
Yeah,
and there's something wrong
exactly.
with them. And
Exactly.
there's nothing wrong with you. You're just highly evolved in the various things that every single person has the ability to be able to
Right.
use. They
Right.
just don't know how.
Yeah,
And there are people like you and I who show them how.
that's right.
And then they
That's
say,
right.
wow, I didn't know I could think that way. Or, ooh, I didn't know I could create a vision and live in that vision and turn it into something positive, and it becomes true. For instance, I didn't know that I could create a blueprint for my life, live in that blueprint that I, my vision board or whatever it is you want to call it,
Right.
and it starts to come true. How does that happen? Well, hello, it's just the law of attraction, one of the laws, anyway.
Well, yeah,
But
it's energy. It's energy, and I
yeah,
think that's where a lot of the confusion lies. Now we've got the equipment that they can actually measure everything that's going on up here in the brain when things like that happen, right? And so when you have that scientific proof behind, what they were calling psychic or intuitive, everyone has that. I mean, you've all had a gut feeling or, oh man, I sensed something was going to be different or change or happen or whatever it is, right? It's just, what are you doing with those rather than shutting that off? Allow your senses to become an expression of you and start to capitalize on them. Start paying attention, and then you use that word awakening. That is what the true awakening is when you start to develop all of those sensory feelings and things that are going
yeah,
on in your body, and it's okay to think out of the box, right? And when
it
you
totally is.
when you have the energy, you got positive, negative energy. Positive, negative does not mean good or bad. It doesn't mean right or wrong, right? It's a charge. It's a negative and a positive charge, which is necessary for everything to exist on this planet, right?
It is.
So when you understand frequency and vibration, then you can remove yourself away from right, wrong, good, bad, and start capitalizing on what your is because it's different from everyone else's, so start finding that truth in yourself, and that's what started my journey, was my identity. I all of a sudden I didn't have any. I had more identity when I was a confused kid, didn't know what was going on, than and then I ended up getting in a dead end marriage, right? And I had 3 kids back to back, boom, 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 right? And it's like, what the heck, And I was not, as you said, living my dream, living my passion, living my vision, And so all of that happening and taking place, it was like I started getting into depression and everything else, and I all of a sudden got blindsided. Like there was no way out. I had no clue how I'm going to get out of this because this is not where I want to be. This is not the life that I dreamed I was going to live, and I set off to exit the planet, right? And and started giving God, let's say, a piece of my mind. But once I started getting all that anger and that frustration, that hate out, I started hearing all these, I heard it, but it was freeing. It was a release, which was prevalent, and it was significant because it exhausted me to the point where I started listening again like I did as a child when I heard these voices, right? And I followed. And when the voice said, who's going to take care of your kids when you're gone? It's like, oh, crap. Well, Mom and Dad ain't going to take care of them because Dad already told me he wasn't going to take care of my kids because he had enough of his own, and being second oldest of 11, I guess that was real, right? And
Absolutely.
so again, when we start to pay attention, and again, like shows like yours and shows like mine here, and hundreds of them that are out there, thousands of them that are out there, are a way to release those things. to be able to share your story, your feelings, just to get it out one way or another. And what's going on in the world today, it kind of started in the 80s, the 90s got big, all of the 2000s. You weren't put in a nut house. You weren't necessarily just drugged. I mean, there's still a lot of drugging going on, to suppress a lot of that, but there's also more awareness happening, with like the work that you and I do, Susan, to open up people's ability to just become that expression, to understand how that old programming is really kind of knocking the socks off you, and you don't have to listen to it. There is a way to rewire and change it all, right? And to be that spirit of who you are, that spirit that you were when you came into this, as you put it, this meat machine, right? Oh my God, that is like so unbelievable. Okay. So,
I totally relate to what you were saying there as well, because when people say to me, well, what was your awakening? We I think as humans have quite a few sparks of awakening.
right.
It's only very often until something extremely traumatic happens, like you saying you were ready to leave this mortal coil, so to speak, and you were,
Right.
suddenly this voice came and said, hey, what about your kids? Basically, I'd been married for 30 years to a narcissist, and I'd been conditioned and programmed into thinking I was nothing. And my husband died 4.5 years ago. And it was only after he died that I had to go through his personal things to basically tie everything up because he'd died, that I discovered a lot of, I'd never really, I've got a thing about privacy, so I never looked at his phones or anything. He always had passwords on them, but he'd actually taken the passwords off. I think it was his way of saying, hey, you better have a look and see what I've been up to while
Oh my
you thought that I was
gosh.
this way. And I'd picked up these 2 phones that he'd hidden away, and I thought they were his work phones. And I thought, oh gosh, I must get hold of his clients and let them know that he's died, because it was
Right.
pretty quick. He died of cancer, and I went to the first phone, and oh my gosh, Beverly, it was like opening up this Pandora's box. It was what came out of that box was whoa, and I discovered that I'd been married to a closet gay for 30 years. He had been blackmailed by some of these people, so that there wasn't a lot of money other than an investment property that we had, and all sorts of stuff. And I, like you, was I was shocked. I was devastated. I was angry, and to put it in a nutshell, I was walking up and down a beach in a little village in the UK, and it was in the winter time, and I was sort of shaking my fist up at the big dude up there and saying, "Hey, God, what's wrong with you? Why did you do this to me? Blah blah blah." And I remember sitting on this outcrop of rocks. Fortunately, the beach was empty because it was cold and UK wet. And I didn't care because I was crying as much as the sky was crying, and feeling very, great big pity party for poor old Susan Kathleen. And I was sort of looking out over the English Channel at France in the distance. And there was this one lone seagull, and he kept on flying around, and I swore at him, and it wasn't ladylike. It was a short 4-letter word. I told him what to do, and he didn't listen. He went flying out towards France, and then came back zooming down on a low sort of plane just above my forehead, and he did a big poop right in the middle of my forehead.
Oh
And I got a
no.
heck of a sense of humor. I sort of sat there wiping this fishy, stinky stuff off my forehead, and I realized that that was my message. The guarded, basically, or universal spirit, whatever you all want to call our quantum energy, I'd realized that I'd been sent a message, and God had said, shit happens, Susan. Suck it up, princess. Get on with your life. Stop feeling so sorry for yourself. And
Right.
basically, I just cracked out laughing, and it was as if it was this enlightenment. It total enlightenment. It was mind blowing.
It was freeing, isn't
Yeah,
it? It's just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that was my awakening. So I went up, my house wasn't far away from the beach. I walked up the hill and giggling all the way up and stinking of fish and poop. And I went and had a long shower. And after that, I reset my idea of where I was. And then I also learned something. I learned you cannot tether yourself to the past, because the past is gone, and you cannot you cannot utilize anger continuously, because it's not affecting anybody else other than yourself.
Exactly.
And so I basically realized, and I've been studying the quantum field and everything for, at that stage, more than 20 years, with all different sort of things that I'd absorbed and trained in and all that, as you do when you have a curious mind. And basically, I looked at my attachment to what I thought had been wronged and made me totally vulnerable and sad and sorry for myself. And I realized, and this is how I actually I teach my clients. When you take a dog for a walk, a big powerful dog, and you've got him on a lead, and you see a lot of people doing it now. Whenever I see them, I sort of think, "Hey, you need to take control, baby." But they sort of going off, and that is the event in your life, or whether you've been raped, whether you've been abused, any of those things. That big dog is that event, that occurrence. And that collar and that chain is whether you have control or the dog has control.
Right.
And so when you suddenly say to yourself, okay, I can pull on this, and the dog will come towards me, but the dog is still attached to that. But when you get home and you unleash that, you left holding the chain, and that event, or whatever you want to call it, the dog goes bounding off. And it's a relief, because you're no longer being pulled and being attached to this. So that attachment, once you learn how to sever that tie, helps you. It makes you understand that there's only one person who can control what's been going on, and that is you.
Right.
If you stay attached to it and allow it to be in control, it can pull you along. Right, even you can fall flat on your face.
You can't,
that's a really big dog.
it's also relevant to, the dog is pulling and you're resisting, right?
Yes.
So when you look at that subconscious as the dog and you're pulling to resist it and not paying attention to it, right? And it can be just as easy as you said, and as simple, to just let go of the leash. If you don't know how to unlock it, just let go of the leash. When you let go of that resistance, it's freeing, right?
It is. And I use the dog a lot with it's always a big black dog, because the big black dog of depression, or and that precedes suicide, self-harm, any of those sort of things. So I just see it as this hound, and when you let it go, that is exactly what you're doing.
Right.
And then you can actually start to look at your story. And another thing I always say is, when you can tell your story without anger, feeling depressed, that it's your story, but you're removed from that story, that's when you're fixed.
Yeah, that's that transformation. I had someone, asking me the other day, on one of the shows, what the difference between change and transformation was. So it was really pretty unique, because change, you can always go back to the way it was. Transformation, there's no going back, right? Which I found very interesting how that was put, And so when you look at the difference of those two, it's really kind of cool.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does. What happened with me is I found that the power of journaling and writing was one of the best therapies I could possibly have for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up writing a self-help book called Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf? And it's not a big, long book. I wrote it for myself, put it up on Amazon, and I didn't know it was going to become a bestseller. And that was healing on its own for me, because
Sure.
I realized I wasn't the only person these things had been happening to. There were lots and lots and lots and lots of people. And there's another thing that I realized as well, was many men purchased that book. And a lot of them who contacted me afterwards said I was with a narcissist. I was a genuine one. When we talk about narcissism, people bandy that word around very easily these days.
Right.
But narcissism is actually a condition. It's like being a sociopath or a psychopath. In fact, that's close to what a narcissist is. And
Yeah,
so when
yeah.
somebody's had a fallout with a boyfriend or girlfriend or partner, they're a narcissist, blah, blah, blah. That's wrong. You shouldn't be using that word.
Right. Understand what it is. It's just kind of a fad word sometimes, that happens, right? I mean, think about the word sorry. How many times do people use that word? And it's just the thing to say. But is it really an apology? No. It's just a word to say. And even the word, love you, right? It's just the thing to say. And where's the meaning behind it? Where is the solidity and the truth, behind it? And I spent 18 years with a gentleman that I knew he loved me, right? He wasn't one to speak that word very often, but I knew when he did, it was as sincere as anything could get. And that meant more to me than if he would have said it every time we had a conversation on a phone or something, and say goodbye, love you, because it gets to be idle words, you know what I mean?
It does. And this is another thing where when you have your awakening and you start to become aware of the massive field force of energy that we're all interconnected with, when you talk about love, only when you start to transform do you understand that love, unconditional love,
Right.
is part of a strength of building who you feel, how you feel about yourself, and then who you say, I love you too. Because it has to
Exactly.
be genuine.
It does. And you tapped on a really good word here. You said unconditional, right? How many times do we see, and sometimes we're guilty of it, unless we start really recognizing it, that we do things and we think they're unconditional, but there's a string attached. Hey, remember 5 years ago when I did that for you? Now it's my turn. This is payback, right? It's like, oh, what happened to our unconditionalness, right?
Again, it's the attachment to the big black dog.
Yeah.
So you have to learn, when you want to practice unconditional love, to not have a big black dog,
The big bad wolf or the boogeyman or whatever you want to call him, right?
on the end of a leash. Actually,
Yeah.
somebody I was coaching the other day, and I was speaking to him, and I was saying to him, now visualize the animal that's holding you to that past hurt. And I was I was very surprised. He had a really big black rabbit.
Oh, well, okay then. Some jackrabbits are black and they get really tall. I mean, you've seen some of them out in Wyoming. They're like 2-3 feet tall. The first time I saw them.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah,
Well,
they
there
look.
you are.
They
Maybe
look
it
like
was
the.
one of those.
They look like the size of your wallabies over there. I'm not kidding you. They're huge. They have these big ears. Those ears are about like that long. Oh my goodness. The first time I saw one, I had to take a double take on that one. I was like, oh my goodness. I never saw a rabbit that big.
I'm gobsmacked. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, they're called jackrabbits, right? Well, like,
Rabbit.
yeah, they're huge. They're huge. Yeah.
Do you eat them?
I guess I guess you could. I mean, we had rabbits, in Iowa and stuff, but they never got that big. But we hunted, wild game. So we ate rabbit and squirrel and turtle and so yeah, you can eat them.
Oh, there you go.
So-
I grew up with a lot of French people. They ate a lot of rabbits.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of rabbits around this country. I'm telling you that.
Well, you could have one jack rabbit for an entire dinner party. That's if you're not vegetarian, of course. That wouldn't work.
Yeah. Well, I'm a vegan, so I leave the rabbits behind now. But oh yeah, some of them rabbits that are that big like that. Yeah, you could probably eat. You could feed a family of 10 or 11, I think, with one.
And bring it out on a platter with an apple in its mouth. Oh dear, this isn't what we meant to be talking about.
No, we were talking about awakening, right? Oh my gosh. See how easy it is to get sidetracked,
Your sense of humor is allowed to run away and just do
it is. When you think about that, that's really a good point right there. Because how many of you out there listening are really kind of shy and held back, where you don't want to do crazy things because you're afraid people are going to point the finger at you or something, and say, what is that crazy person doing over there, right? But that's part of life. That's a part of living. Be in that expression. Be loud. Have fun. Laugh. Be crazy. Because that elevates your energy, right? And
It certainly does. And of course, universe understands joy, laughter,
that's right.
happiness, dance.
Yeah.
That's what we should be doing. My grandsons, I have two of them. One's 8 and one's 10, I think. Well, 7 and 10.
Something like that, right?
Something like that. And when we go out in the olden days, when we were allowed to go out into a shopping mall, and there was good music, I'd sort of do a bit of a boogie, and they say, oh no, Nonna, don't dance again. Everybody's talking. Yeah, that's right. It's okay.
That's right.
I can do that.
Oh gosh, what I used to do with my kids? I still do. I've got great grandkids now, right? But they'd be in the cart, right, or walking beside me or whatever, and it's like everybody stand in the cart. When they were little, they loved it, right? And then I'd push it really hard, and I'd jump on it, and then we'd just coast across the parking lot, right? Well, the older they got, it's like, well, let's keep doing this. And they weren't going to get on. Now they're like teenagers, right? And it's like, seriously? Well, I'll meet you at the car, and I'd jump on, and I'd push the cart, and I'd go. And
that crazy grandma.
Yeah, it's like they're looking around like, I don't know her, right? But again, it's living that life to its fullest.
It is.
Who cares what people think about you? Everybody's sitting here thinking about, people are going to be thinking about what I'm doing. They're going to be judging me and whatever, right? And here you are thinking that. Every single one of them are thinking that. So nobody's really being real. And then when somebody does go off and do something, it's like, oh, I wish I could do stuff like that. Well, just do it, right?
Absolutely. Have you ever been at the traffic lights or robots or whatever you call them in the States, and you stopped, and there's a car next door to you, and there's a man or woman or a family, and they are singing at the top of their voices to what they're listening to,
Right.
and nodding their heads and carrying on? I love it. I just watch that and think, oh, good, I can do that too. And
Right.
that makes me happy to see other people doing that.
Oh, yeah, I think that's great. I've seen that too. And then I've seen the extreme opposite, where they're sitting there and there's arguments going on. It's like, okay, hurry up, light. you know?
Yeah, we don't want that one.
Oh,
They can do that.
yeah.
But that's, again, it's the energy vibes that come out
Yeah.
energetically and affect you.
Yeah, they
When you can
do.
walk into a room and there's one really mean, grumpy old soul there, and I don't know about you, Beverly, but I pick it up. It's almost like these ultrasound waves come
Right.
wafting at.
Yeah,
at me,
you
and I
walk.
think,
Yeah. Yeah, you walk in and
zip
you're like,
yourself up, Susan.
what is going on? So a lot of times when I walk, I don't know what you do, but if I walk into a situation like that and I'm like, oh, somebody's got to lighten this party up, man, I just start going. I just start doing crazy things,
Why not?
It's just to
But
keep,
that's what-
because I don't want my energy to start lagging. I don't want to be hit and feel uncomfortable with that. So I'm going to make sure that I get surrounded with something that's not lagging or heavy,
I
and
agree with you. And
So-
and that keeps you young.
yeah, it does. I'm only 45.
Yes, you told me that.
I know.
I've taken on that. I'm only 35.
Well, there you go. And now all my kids are older than me. Go figure, right?
Yeah, so my daughters, I don't know why.
Oh, it's the crazy universe. Hey, remember that show that came out? Oh gosh, it's been quite a few years ago, where the baby was born, and he looked like an old man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what the name of it was. And then
Benjamin
Benjamin,
Button.
yeah, and then so the more he grew, the younger he got, right? Until I loved that movie. There's a lot of truth to that. So when you start living your life in the mindset of how you feel, right? You don't have to be old just because the planet says you've been here for this many days. Okay, that's fine. And one of the things that I'd like to just slap the doctors and stuff when they say, well, you're doing pretty good for the age that you are. Boom, boom, boom. It's like, don't put me in a category like that,
That's because we know everything's an illusion.
It is an illusion. It is an illusion. Yeah.
This time is man-made. There
Yes,
no
it
time.
is. There is no time and space except what you create here on the planet. That planet, right back there.
That one there.
Yeah, that one
I,
there.
I like the lights on that planet. They're pretty.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the moon shining down.
Oh,
Or maybe it's the sun shining down. Or maybe
I
it's
thought you
just
were
the
having
big
a light
bright
bulb
star.
moment.
I have a few of those. Okay, I'm having a light bulb moment and it's shining across the planet, right? It's going all the way over there to Australia.
Cool. I love it.
So, in your spiritual travels, right? You're working in the transformation and everything and big aha moments and stuff. And let's get a little bit deeper, into some of that, what they're calling spiritual, but really in the essence, it's moving into the soul essence of who you are. Can you share with the audience, how you feel when you're really in that avenue of the whole mindset, with the spirit, and how that impacts your life in just your day-to-day living?
That's a great question. I think once you start to understand that you are not solid, so to speak.
You mean you're not this meat machine?
You're not this meat machine, you're not this meat suit thing, and that you are all energy. You start to understand the quantum metaphysics. So in transformation, that's what we start to understand, and we understand that we are spirit, and we're all interrelated with not only God or universal spirit, which is the massive pull of the universe. We're also connected to every single thing that's on this earth. So that be it you, me, animals, trees, the earth, whatever it is, we're all interconnected. So when we start to understand that no man, this again, no man is an island. No
Right.
man is an island. However, each one of us are part of the group of islands,
Right.
and so whatever we do has cause and effect. So when we understand that what we think becomes, you start to understand that you have to push negativity away in order to be able to get the essence of your reality, which is what you want that is positive. And that is in all four areas of your life, be it time and money freedom, be it love and relationships, be it health and wellness, and be it your vocation. Now, I use the word vocation instead of your business because each one of us have a calling, which is our vocation. And when you start to understand that more, Beverly, what happens is you start to know your why you're here. So when you work backwards from where you are now, and you look at yourself when you were little, you start to explore what you were really, really good at. What was your gift that you brought with you to live on this earth at this time? And when you start to understand what that gift is, be it a musical, a fantastic artist, somebody good at writing, dressmaking, somebody who likes to fix things like a mechanic, any of those sort of things, you can focus back on what your raison d'être, so to speak, is, or your reason to be, is to understand your calling, your understanding of transformation, where you are, etc., etc. So what happens to us is, again, often people, and you and I discussed at the beginning of this chat, is it gets, and I'm using the Victorian word for it, but it gets beaten out of you. It gets pulled out of you.
Right.
Where people will say to you, you're never going to, okay, you can draw in your spare time, but you're never going to be you can be a good artist, but you're never going to make money out of that.
Right.
Or don't waste your time pulling that radio apart. It's already okay, but it's some little boy or little girl who wants to see how it works. So we conditioned from childhood that we can't do certain things that we're birthed with, whereas we should be encouraged to be the savant, or the wonderful person that you have, that's with one or two, sometimes a multitude of really good things. I mean, if you think of Picasso or Michelangelo or any of those sort of people, they were allowed to live their reality.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly.
In the modern day, we tell our children that that's not going to work for them. Now, this is where we come back to we talking about the age, the real age of Aquarius, and we talk about our indigo and our crystal children.
Right.
These are gifted children. A lot of them will point a finger at and say, oh, he's got Asperger's, or she's got dyslexia, or whatever. They're different, but they are unique. They sensitives. They understand things that many of us who've been conditioned, baby boomers,
exactly,
post World War II, where we had to be brave and get on with our lives and do all the stuff that we had to do.
Right.
We then conditioned our offspring, and our offspring have done that. Whereas we're looking at these new youngsters that have been birthed into this world in the last 10 to 15 years, and they are unique. They're here to be part of the age of Aquarius.
And there's a lot that we can learn from them too, in accordance to the awakening. And when what you're saying, it's so true and it's so prevalent right now. And when we look at what transpired during this whole COVID thing, is the education as we knew it stopped. I mean, it came right to an abrupt halt, right? So maybe now is the time to really start looking at how are we educating our children, right? How should we change that education? Maybe we should be teaching them the real things to live on the world with. You know, I mean, they've taken a lot of the history away, you know, from our past. History is good to have an understanding of where we've been and where we're going, but just the things of life, day-to-day life, you know, how many kids do you know today that know how to change a tire, know how to check their oil, know how to change their own oil, right? Even know how to put air in the tire, even if they don't need to know how to change it.
They don't.
Right? I mean, how do they even know how to cook? If it doesn't come out of a can or a box and it doesn't go in the microwave, they don't know what to do, right? You know, and then you look at these crazy things here, right? Man, you put one of these in their hand and whoop, they're an Einstein, you know?
Yeah, they know better than me. I have to ask my little baby grandsons how to do some of this stuff.
Yeah.
When you speak about that, there's a form of education in Denmark. It's the most Denmark and Japan. They're the most successful children, and the reason is they have no borders about classrooms. I mean, in Denmark they have walls that are high enough for kids to clamber over to go to the next class if they see something that's more interesting. And their exam results and everything are really high, and they focus on what those children are genuinely good at, and they encourage them and tell them how good they are at something. And that is what I know. I've been in education for almost 40 years, so I have a great passion for young, not only children, but young adults, learning in a certain way and being uplifted and told that they are really good at something. Because in the old days, we had to learn the 3 R's,
Yes.
and if we weren't good at all 3 of them, there was something wrong with us.
Right, exactly.
And so I've noticed during COVID-19, and again, it's not just my grandchildren, but opening myself up to what other children and other parents are experiencing, they are far more relaxed at home, just like all of the big grown-up people who are having to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
They're more productive,
Right.
and children are less stressed because they're not being forced into all the extra activities.
Right. And they're not being dumped somewhere, you
Yeah.
know, and then come home and the parents are exhausted, so they get dumped to their room, you know, and now they're having family meals together. You know, it's bringing that unit back together, and I think that is probably one of the greatest things to come out of this whole nightmare or whatever you want to call it, you know. And so again, it's taking the good things and the changes that were necessary, you know. And again, we look at that pendulum swinging, right? So our pendulum has been way over here, and all of a sudden, in an instant, it went way over there, right? And now, 3 months later, 4 months later, whatever it is, it's starting to come back down. So can we bring both of those pendulums down and have some form of harmony here where there's a balance, and we can get back into the basics and the root of things and really start to, as you say, I think that's beautiful what you were sharing with Denmark and was it Japan? You know, that are an expression to their children. It's like, wow, you're really good at that, and focus on that and build that up, because it's so needed. It's so needed. How many of us here, you know, you guys are listening out there, how many of you out there are actually in a position, or were in a position before this started, in a job, in a job thing that you were not happy at, and the only reason you stuck around is because there was a paycheck, right? How many? How many? Be honest. Just say me, right? Because it happens so often, and we get stuck in that rut because, again, we were told we weren't going to amount to anything, or all right, I kind of got good at this, so I need to stay at this, right? Where's those dreams? Where's those visions, right? Now is the time to really awaken your true identity, your true purpose, and start living that life and start being and doing those things that bring joy and peace and harmony and love into the spirit of who you are. Because when you can bring that all in here, then you can be an expression out there of that, right?
That's for sure. You know, the other thing is, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners will relate to this. Now that they are sitting at home, many of them have lost jobs, but now that they are sitting at home, what are they reverting to? They're reverting back to thinking, well, how can I survive?
Right.
And many of them are looking at what their natural gifts are. Their natural gifts for their vocation, which vocation is a calling.
Right.
And if people could understand, and again, I use this when I'm trying to help people create some sort of small business or something, but how many of the listeners out there would love to be able to wake up every single morning happy that they're going to go and do something that they absolutely love doing,
Right.
where they love to be able to get up and cook, or some people even like to clean and sweep.
Yeah, I could never understand that one.
I don't either, but some do.
Yeah, you know what? And that's fine. I can hire him to do that all day long.
Yeah, do your thing, baby, because, I'm not going to do it, but I'll pay you to do it. But people are starting to recreate and say, okay, well, I'm going to become... I know one person who said, well, I don't mind washing windows. It's therapeutic for me. So I said, well, why don't you go and start a business doing that? Because you've got no business right now.
Okay.
And he said to me, yeah, I'll do that.
That's a good idea. I think I will. And that's true. I never really thought about it, that way. But there are a lot of people now that are reverting, like you say, back to the things that they like to do because there's nothing else to do. So you might as well, I used to like to do this. Let's see if I still do, right? Because it's something that's there with you, and it's not having to go punch a time clock with or anything else. So there's a lot of really great things that are coming out of this awakening time, that has given us an opportunity to step back in and again start to focus on that purpose and that identity and that spirit essence of who we were that came here with that contract. Where is that specialty item that you are? I've been talking to a few people, and we kind of started on this little, what can we do every day thing to make it, a better you every day, right? And it's like, okay, get out a piece of paper and start writing down all the things that you perceive in you to be an asset, no matter how big or how small they are, that you feel that, this is an asset. This is an asset for me. Okay, if washing windows is an asset, kudos. If cleaning dishes is an asset, kudos, right? Whatever they are, all these different assets. And when you got your list compiled, then start talking to other people that are in your family that are maybe around you all the time, maybe siblings that you don't see that often, but hey, we still have connection here, right? People that are friends, even co-workers, right? And start asking them, what do you see in me that you would call an asset? And when you compile all of that, then take that back to what you wrote that you thought were your assets and compare them. And I think you will be remarkably surprised.
Very wise advice.
Yeah. Then you can say, wow, I didn't know people thought about me like that. I didn't know people actually paid attention, right? Because you're so worried up here in your thought processes is what are they thinking bad about me? What are they thinking I'm not good enough at? What do they think, my hair isn't in place or my makeup's not on or my clothes aren't straight or whatever, right? But they're really paying attention to what your assets are. So maybe you should pay attention to what your assets are and start to become an expression of them, right?
And become awakened.
There you go. What a way to wake up, right? Susan, gosh, we could just keep going on here for the rest of the night or the rest of your day, right? So I want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I am so honored to have you on my show. And I hope everyone listening out there got some really good information. And if you want to contact Susan, you can comment below, reach out and private message her. But if they want to just really reach out to you, Susan, where can they get a hold of you?
They can find me. Oh, I'm trying not to cough.
She got all choked up over that. Oh, my goodness.
My goodness, I haven't got COVID-19, I promise.
No, she was just choked up all that admiration I was giving her. All that sweet loving.
You can find me on Awaken Your Mind. Oh, goodness me, Beverly. Didn't expect that to happen.
Well,
you can find
things
me
all
on
happen for a reason, she said.
awakenyourmindmagic.com or susancookcoaching.com.
There we go. Yeah. So, Susan, one more thing. What would you like to leave the audience with today?
What I'd love to do is to say to everyone that at the moment, everybody is under huge duress and stress. And just like I spoke about the big black dog of depression, which I suspect many of us are having to deal with, use this time wisely. And as Beverly was saying earlier on, write down only three, of the things that you remember as a child that you were really, really good at. And then reflect on those. Because you are a unique soul, an amazing person, living a human experience at this time. And you chose to be here, pre-birth, at this time, this unique, amazing time that every one of us are living through. And practice unconditional love and love your brother and sister, no matter what color, creed, or faith they are. That, to me, is more important than anything, because I think each and every one of us is starting to understand there is one fantastic universal spirit, and we are all totally interconnected. And that is what I would love to be able to leave the listeners with today. Thank you, Beverly.
Oh, very well said. Very well said. We are one with the universe, and the universe is one with us. And that's that draw. So really go out there, start focusing on your connection with people around the world. Start opening up and get that global reach. Sometimes, what you were just saying, it's like with the podcast, all you have is the voice and the sound, right? And you can hear the expression, the happiness, or whatever in that tone, right? But you don't see the person. So there's no, what do I want to call it? Predestined thought that they are different, right? Yeah. That you're not judging them because all you hear is that. There's no sight. But when you're on a video like this, now you're really exposed and you're vulnerable to the world here, right?
Yep.
And so then that's when some of them judgments comes up, especially color, age, sex, all these different things. It's like, that's just part of this thing that we wander around in, right? That meat machine, as you said, that's just that thing that we just bounce around here on the planet. But we really need to get back in touch with that spirit essence and become an awakening and enlightened spirit again with the divine intelligence of all that is, and start tapping into that by getting back into the innocence that began at your conception, right? Yeah. So everyone go out there, be that best you that you can be, because Susan and I are going to go be the best we that we can be. We'll see you all on this next show, and thank you again, Susan, for being here.
My pleasure, Beverly. Thank you. And I'm glad I'm not coughing anymore.
Well, there you go.